Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Neil with Portal to Ascension here at the Portal to Ascension conference. You're checking us out live on YouTube, our Portal to Ascension YouTube page. Click the subscribe button, click the notification bell. We're coming out with some epic presentations, groundbreaking information, revolutionary awareness, here to shift and create a new paradigm on this planet where we can all live in peace and harmony with ourselves and with others. And we're at the milestone event, Portal to Ascension, that is a 10-year conference in the making, literally, and 1,000 events. And now we're here with some of the most amazing minds and revolutionaries in the world that are really creating a huge impact and have dedicated their life and their mission and their livelihood to empowering each other and empowering themselves so we can all live in more authenticity and love and abundance. So today I'm here with a person I'm extremely grateful and blessed to be introducing and to have at our conference. His name is Justin Deschamps from Stillness in the Storm. And I got connected with Justin maybe like a year ago, and the way it was I was actually Googling Jordan Sather because I wanted to see if he wanted to be on a conference, and I connected with him, and he told me, when I said, hey, do you have any other people that I can connect with, he told me that you got to check out Justin Deschamps, dude. This guy is freaking awesome. So I went ahead to Google him, Stillness in the Storm, delved into everything he's doing and who he is as a person, watched some of your videos, and I was really resonating with everything that he is. His energy is beautiful. His presentations are groundbreaking. He covers so much information, and it's just a true honor to have him a part of this because we are the portal to ascension, every aspect of consciousness awareness, and we need those people that represent bringing the picture together. So here we are with Justin Deschamps. Hey, brother.
How's it going, Neil?
Good, man. So thank you so much for being here, bro. You already know how much I love you and respect your work, and I'm truly appreciative that you are here. Just tell everybody at home kind of like how you got into this, and just give us the kind of the timeline of what happened with you and how you created Stillness in the Storm.
Well, I created Stillness in the Storm back in 2013. It was originally just a way for me to share what I was researching. Me and my partner at the time, we had a wake-up experience in 2010. I discovered cures for cancer, and it just blew me away because, as you know, I mean, people are dying every year from cancer, and this is something we can prevent. And then once I let that settle in my consciousness, it was like my whole reality came unhinged, and I just researched everything I could get my hands on. So in 2013, I just wanted to start sharing what I was researching with the world because I seemed to have like kind of a unique perspective on some of the things, and I hadn't heard a lot of people talking about it. And then that just kind of slowly unfolded and exploded on its own. I got into all sorts of topics like free energy, health, cures for cancer, spirituality, UFOs, government cover-up. And then I started to get really into, we have all of these problems happening on the planet. We have all these issues. What is the core skills and things that I need to know to try to fix all of them, And then I discovered that there were 3 basic topics for everything that kind of covered everything. So it didn't matter what your solution was, if you had a free energy device or you were trying to highlight government corruption or you were trying to put out healing technology. You always have to take that idea and you have to market it. You have to work with other people. You have to get it implemented, especially if it's a big project. So that means you need knowledge of psychology, and then you also need that to know yourself, right? So then I decided, okay, well, what else is important? Well, in order to implement a solution, in order to work with other people, in order to actually build this harmonious world we want to live in, I have to figure out how people can live in harmony with each other. Is there a science to this? Is there a technique for this? And it turns out there is. And it's called the law. The law is the thing that governs social interaction and how we can work with each other. So then I realized, wow, I mean, with these 2 things in hand, we can literally solve all of our problems. But there was one missing ingredient, and that was philosophy, because philosophy really is the thing that undergirds all of our knowledge. How do you know anything? How do you even know who you are? How do you know that you're sitting here right now? How do you know, it's all about the mind, interpreting information and all that stuff. So that's really, since that time we started Stillness, all of the work that I've been doing has kind of been an umbrella around that, and the outer casing has been psychology, law, and philosophy. And now I'm really trying to get out solutions and tools through those venues to solve all of our problems, anything we can do. And it's all about partnership and working together, So
right, exactly. So what was the timeline from you discovering that there's cures from cancer to you actually creating Stillness in the Storm, and was spirituality a part of your life talking about not just being a spiritual person, religious, or anything else, but spirituality of the non-dogmatic kind that we have here. Was that a part of your life before the cancer thing, or was the cancer cures the milestone that you needed in order to get you there?
I was not a spiritual person beforehand. I was basically a scientific atheist, material atheist. I thought it was all woo-woo. I had a pretty good scientific mind, so I studied physics in school, but I kind of studied all sorts of science, and I thought to myself, oh, well, I would have known about these things beforehand. I kind of had like an arrogant, dismissive perspective on it. Yeah. But then, as I'm researching this information, the scientist in me is like, well, wait a minute, there's some truth to this, but the skeptic in me is like, no, this can't be real. And yeah, that was like the catalyzing moment for me, because as soon as I discovered that in 2010, I just questioned everything I could possibly get my hands on. What else were we being lied to? And I kept discovering information related to like the occult and how the powers that be seem to have this kind of dark religion. And it made me question my own conclusions about spirituality. Like maybe, just like a lot of people, I think, become atheists. I was exposed to religion early on. It didn't really jive with me. And I'm like, this is all hooey. I'm just not even going to pay attention to any of it. But then, after 2010, I started researching, the dark occult and particularly UFOs. And I kept encountering these contact experiences of people where they would have these experiences making contact with extraterrestrials, and the ETs would be spiritual. They'd be talking about a creator and source and loving each other, and it almost had like this religious quality to it. And it kind of weirded me out for a little bit. I was like, what is Christianity in space happening? Like, what's going on there, So yeah, that's how I got into the spiritual side. And then once the spiritual side came in, it was like, it kind of allowed everything else, what I was researching, to make more sense. It kind of wove a really good tapestry together.
Right. It's similar to kind of my ways was that I really went into the occult, and then that actually led into conspiracy theories. That led to me going into a realm of fear, right? I decided to take on that fear. I didn't have to. I could have looked at it neutrally. But I saw it as we're screwed, basically. Like, what are they doing to us, right? And I was lost in that. And then the spiritual component gave me the full circle awareness that I started realizing it was all about love, right? And what you said about extraterrestrials and how it has a religious quality, and we got to be clear, we're not talking about organized religion. When we're saying religion, we're just talking about a faith in something, connection to something, right? But it's interesting to me because I feel that this is all science. This is quantum physics, the vibration and frequency. That's what extraterrestrials are. That's what faith and religion is. That's what it's all about. So what do you feel in regards to really informing the masses about what is happening and connecting it to the science so that we can create some sort of connection there and get that out to more people and convince them? Because a lot of people need the linear mind to be appeased and rationalized before they do it. What's your take on that?
Sure. I think educating the masses about all sorts of things is really important. As I mentioned a moment ago, I have these three things that I think are like really crucially important, but you kind of need to like work your way up to them. And one of the things I've found is a good technique is you kind of got to use the bright and shiny lore. You have to show them something that they're interested in, and then if you show them something they're interested in, then they'll be more into wanting to look into the deeper topics. So, from a science of consciousness perspective, that's something I'm super fascinated by because, when it comes to things like psychic abilities or telepathy or how consciousness works and how time seems to work, there is a lot of scientific data out there. The fact that if the geomagnetic field is really quiet, then we can actually have more telepathic communication because our minds can actually entrain with the fields more precisely. That's a really cool thing to think about and talk about.
If the what is the line?
The geomagnetic field, right. So to break that down a little bit, like the Schumann resonances are actually woven into your body, so you're harmonic with the body. So when the Schumann resonances vibrate, okay, the geomagnetic field vibrates, that energy is actually coursing into your own body, and energy has information. So if you tune yourself to the field, if you get still and get quiet, you can actually start to pull in downloads when there's low geomagnetic activity. And there's this guy, Dr. Michael Persing here from the Stanford Research Institute. He was working with Ingo Swann back in the 80s and 90s, and he was able to discover taking what's called spontaneous cognition events, where people would have these moments where they'd wake up in the middle of the night and they'd know something horrible happened to their loved one like miles away, and only to discover that in fact, they had died or something had happened. And he noticed that these spontaneous cognition events happened when there was low geomagnetic activity. So that suggests that our minds and our consciousnesses are actually connected through electromagnetic spectrums, and depending on what's happening in the environment, what's happening on us, we can actually increase this telepathic contact. So, yeah, I think that's, to get back to your question, the spiritual topic is so vast, but bringing in the scientific perspective, making it more real and pragmatic and tangible is something I'm really focused on, because I think it's that real side that will take the division out of it and make us one people again.
Yeah. I've noticed in the time I've been in this community, like 16 years, but 8-10 years doing events, that a lot of people say, oh, I've heard this before, this is the same information, or I already know, I don't need to know. But what we forget to realize is it's not about us knowing and have the people who know having to know more. It's about that information being valid for everyone else. We might not need it, but there's 75% to more of the planet that completely doesn't know this stuff. So the science of it all is very interesting, because it's a paradox. We're shifting into this feminine creative energy, but the best way to get there is to appease the masculine energy, which is the linear mind. Right? So the process of what you're doing, and then other individuals here, and basically the new generation of awareness, is compiling everybody's research into one. A lot of people in the past, they've been doing their own thing for quite some time. So I'm extremely excited to be seeing people like you bring it together. Now, you did a presentation on free energy and fractal holographics, basically, as a component to that. I wasn't in your presentation, I was busy, but I want you to give kind of a synopsis and really go into what that means.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, what I did is presented how free energy devices work from a principled perspective. So free energy devices work mainly because they take energy that's already in the environment and they figure out a way to focalize it, and it's called implosion. And the way that this works is you have to create an electromagnetic field that has the capacity to compress information and energy and do what's called constructive wave interference. So when two waves are moving and they're in phase with each other, if these waves come in contact, they can actually add with each other, and so the energy of the two waves combines. And what a free energy device basically does, if you think of like a torus, then these waves are coming in, they're all adding with each other, and that means the energy level at the center keeps getting higher, and then eventually you get an energy output of free energy. So how that relates to a fractal is the only structure we know of for organizing information non-destructively, so you can keep compressing it. So the more you iterate a fractal, the more a fractal expresses itself, the more information is actually stored inside of it. It's actually stored in a limited space. So that's how you can think of like a confined infinity, is the more the fractal iterates, the more information just keeps being added into that confined space.
Say that last part again, that sentence.
What
the fractal does what?
It iterates. It
fractals out even more?
Right, exactly. So when you have a fractal's like an equation, and then you have to keep progressing the equation across time, and then that's when it gets more detailed and refined.
Right.
So that concept of fractal expression, literally it's adding more information and detail to the fractal. So this relates to consciousness, because your consciousness is the same way. You're learning things throughout life. Whatever you learn throughout life acts like the outer boundary of the fractal, and then information constantly weaves and embeds as you learn things throughout life. So free energy incorporates implosion through fractals. Your consciousness incorporates implosion through fractals. So now what's interesting is that the free energy device has to work with itself. It has to be harmonized with itself. It has to have unity with itself in order to produce the free energy effect. Your consciousness, if you want to be mastered, if you want to have skill, if you want to have wisdom, if you want to live a happy, productive life, you need to do the same thing with your consciousness. All of your knowledge acts like pieces of a free energy device in consciousness. It acts like pieces of your being. And if they're disjointed and not in harmony with each other, you're going to have cognitive dissonance, you're going to have emotional problems, you're not going to be able to direct your will to do what you want.
Right.
You do the reverse, though. You gain self-mastery, you really question yourself, you ask deep questions about whether or not something's true or not. Then you really get like an over-unity effect in consciousness. And then lastly, I related that to how we can create abundance in the world using the same principles. So instead of components of a free energy device working together, it's people like me and you. Because like we were talking about, we have solutions for almost any problem you can think of.
Yeah,
The main problem really is a people problem at this point. How do we work together? How do we solve our mutual problems, you know? So that's basically what I talked about.
That's interesting. The last component of what you just said, right? How do we work together to do it? We have all the answers. We have all the technology. We have the wisdom. We have the ancient scriptures. But it's so easy. For example, you know, if we want to maybe stop a few different sicknesses on the planet, let's all go to Himalayan salt rather than table salt, right? Such a simple component, right? You could say that about many things. Okay, let's make sure we have alkaline water, but only have it when you're not about to eat, so that it's your acids and your stuff. Those things were taught to us, and we did them throughout our life. These are not even going in deep like secret space programs and unacknowledged. This is just on the surface level. We could change so much, but how do you get 7+ billion people to all do the same thing at the same time, right? When we've been indoctrinated over thousands of years, something different. What I really find interesting, what you just said, is the fractal component of information, because to me it's almost like source was the original fractal, and then everything fractaled out of it, and all these dimensions and densities came as a different fractal, but it was the continuous of fractal. So what happens when we go lower in the dimensions is we're coming here to gain information, right? And then we go lower and lower in dimension until we have linearity, and now we have the progression of information over this time, this fractal nature. So does that connect to what you're saying about free energy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if like you said, if you think of the creator as the ultimate fractal, right? Then as time progresses on, then the finite nature of reality keeps getting more detailed, more refined, you know? So, and that does seem to be where time comes into the equation. Like we experience time as like a sequence and procession of events, but time isn't really as linear as we like to think, you know? I mean, one of the fields of research I got into is Dewey B. Larson. And he came up with a model where when you accelerate material past the speed of light, it actually moves into time-space, which is like 3 dimensions of time and 1 dimension of space. And what that basically means from a consciousness perspective is that as soon as you have an experience in the physical 3D world, the 3-dimensional space-time world, all that information that gets stored in your consciousness, and then you can access it. So it's like you don't have to like watch a movie and then if you want to get all the data from the movie, you have to watch it again in your mind, right? You can access all that information as if you're fast-forwarding back and forth. So this kind of like fractal aspect of consciousness seems to be related to time, and it seems to be related to this progression and flowing of events and things like that.
Right. So how do we get practical with free energy devices, right? How do we cultivate it? You're talking about the concept of where free energy can come from and how we can pull from it. Or is there anyone out there creating this, and do you foresee it actually occurring and coming out in the future?
Yes, there are lots of people developing free energy devices. When I was in Morocco in 2014, I was working with a group who was working on a free energy device. So I personally have contact with people who have been working on these things. I'm also, where I live in Virginia, there's the Center for Vibratory Physics. They have several free energy devices, apparently. So these devices exist. I mean, there's the Searle effects generator, there's the repulse sign. There are probably dozens, if not hundreds, of these things. But the main issue as far as getting it implemented is, like we were talking about earlier, it's a people problem, you know. The government has a stranglehold on this. They want to make sure that people don't understand and realize that free energy exists. So I would say, you know, getting this out to the public might involve us doing some type of awareness campaign, you know, where we take the time to actually talk about these things in a way that people can really understand. And I think if we can do that, I mean, the sky's the limit with all sorts of stuff, because free energy, the beautiful thing about free energy, particularly Searle's device, is that not only does it give you free energy, but it creates this healing magnetic field around it, so you're actually getting healed while you're powering your house. I mean, this is an amazing technology.
Now, how does this free energy devices connect to the extraterrestrial UFO phenomena for you?
Well, a lot of ufologists or people who research UFOs, particularly Mark McCandlish is the one that comes to mind. They seem to observe that there must be some type of free energy or zero-point energy source. Zero-point energy, ZPE. There was actually in a lot of email exchanges between Edgar Mitchell and John Podesta at one point. That came out in the WikiLeaks. And this has been a topic that's been around for years. I mean, there's FBI documents talking about, you know, free energy devices and things like this, zero-point energy devices working with UFOs. So I think this idea of free energy, of actually creating a device that draws energy out of the cosmos itself, it's kind of like a milestone in progress for whatever a civilization is going through, you know? So extraterrestrials, it seems like, you know, you study something long enough, eventually you're going to stumble upon this information, and then you're going to have access to it and you can use it. And a lot of the observations that we see from people who study UFOs seem to indicate that, yeah, there's definitely some type of free energy devices working in these things.
Right. And in the documentary Thrive, when they say what, you know, the reason why that we haven't disclosed UFOs is because it's connected to their energy devices and how they got here. And once you do that, the petrodollar gets into play and all these other power structures and control. So it's very interesting how this is actually connected to everything. A lot of wars on the planet have happened because of this, but we've kind of been shown that this is drama of these two people playing it out, but we don't know what level they think they know that they think what they're doing is actually real, or if they know that they're playing this role, right? So you also speak about relationships, right, and the psychology behind relationships. And we're going to put a couple of presentations together because the conversations we had really, I resonate with the information that you're saying. Do you want to kind of like shed some light on how you got into that and what you're really trying to help people uncover when it comes to that?
Sure. Well, part of the reason I got into relationship dynamics is because I wanted to understand the deeper aspects of how the control system works. I mean, we tend to get focused on like the fantastic side, like the flashy stuff, like secret space program, and, you know, HARP mind control, and, you know, things like this. And those are obviously important. But I started, as I was researching a lot of developmental psychology, trying to understand how the mind works from a, you know, infant to adulthood perspective. I realized that a lot of the things that influence us the most are actually the most mundane. You know, so just basic human relationships, being raised by your parents, like how you interface with your culture, you know, the use of your cell phone and what you do with your cell phone and how you interact with that and what that effect that has on your consciousness was actually affecting us way more than what I originally thought. Yeah. And particularly when we think about the nature of society, the Ranchod Book is a book that I discovered a few years ago, and that's actually the thing that kind of like really propelled my awakening forward spiritually. And there's a whole section on marriage and relationships, and it says how basically an individual's capacity to create a harmonious society and work with other people in general is directly related to the marriage and the family unit. So the family unit becomes like the basis for how that individual can do anything in their life. So thinking about all that, I'm like, oh my God, this is really important. I need to research this. And as I started to research it, I started to realize there was a lot of relationship dynamics that seemed to be influenced by social engineers, specifically designed to destroy the male-female bond or just destroy relationships in general. And that has a direct impact on, obviously, newer generations and children. So, for example, the one thing I discovered recently is that the use of technology like Instagram, Snapchat, any social media that's specifically designed to feature your physicality or present some aspect of yourself, it's a type of like ego validation. And normally we get ego validation through socializing with people. You know, so 100 years ago, if you wanted to interact with somebody, you had to like go somewhere and sit there and talk with them and have an exchange with them. Well, now we can have exchanges with conceivably thousands of people through a device, but there's not really a deep exchange. And that actually limits what you can get from a personal exchange. Because what this does neurologically is it changes the brain, particularly the limbic parts of the brain that respond to emotion. So the emotional reward you get from seeing a lot of likes on your selfie that you just put on Instagram is incredibly high. The ability for your partner to compete with that level of validation is going to be, it's really strenuous. So generations that are being raised now, the Instagram, Facebook generation, literally their neurology and how they actually are capable of interfacing with people and bonding has been fundamentally altered. And we don't really know what the final effects of that are, but there's a lot of data to already suggest that these are causing massive problems with people. So.
Okay. So can we pick it up in a second? She just wants to say something.
Okay.
Baby. They don't open until 12:15. What time is it right now?
It's 12:35. She's standing there waiting.
Tell her to come here. I'll send someone else because we didn't get the chance to order it.
She ordered
Okay, yeah, actually, have her order like 5 pizzas and 2 vegan ones.
Oh, you're not getting all vegan?
No, because not everybody's vegan.
Okay, what do I do?
Just 5 pizzas, 2 vegan. Just say that they wouldn't let us order on the phone.
Pizzas, 5
Yeah, and then 1
pizzas,
gluten free. Just
like cheese and pepperoni, or just cheese?
I think we should do all vegetarian just in case, right?
Cheese and
Yeah,
then
because everybody eat that.
okay, 5.
Yeah, 1 gluten free. Tell her to get the one that Malcolm wants, whatever the way that she wants to do it. That's a gluten free one.
Where's no?
Tell her to get 5 pizzas and make sure one of them is gluten free and at least 2 of them are vegan. Okay, are we still on?
Yeah.
So I love what you're saying about relationships, and truly, because the reason why we do like conscious nutrition, for example, sacred sexuality, and all these other courses, but ultimately we're here for full disclosure, right? From wherever, like all the information, technology, disclosure about ancient history. Some people forget to realize that without doing the inner work and working on our projection, working on our way we react, because we're all reacting so much. Yesterday we were talking about how everybody takes everything so personally these days, right? It's just this energy going on right now. But it really comes down to doing the inner work and stepping into our own authentic self so that we can make some change, right? What is your take on, what kind of things that we can actually do in order to harmonize our energy so that we can be more open to all this other information?
Sure. Well, I'd say, just some basic practices like meditation. The parts of you that you need to really nurture and heal that get affected. So your emotional state, doing a meditation practice, I would say minimum 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day. It can be extremely helpful because in our modern world, there's so much information flying around. If we don't get out of that space, basically your personality kind of calcify and gets really rigid. And then even if you're having really good experiences, you're learning about a bunch of stuff, it can't really work into you if you're not taking the time to relax your mind. So meditation is really important. The other thing that's really important is developing an active philosophy, like actually thinking about the information you're receiving or your life experiences in general. So most of the rules that we use to govern our life are subconscious programs that were installed when we were between the ages of 0 and 6 years old.
Yeah.
So if you're not examining those things, if you're not looking at what you do and how you react to things in the world, for a good example, a lot of people like to say they're spiritual and they would never hurt and harm somebody or get angry, right?
Yeah.
But then if they're driving on the road and they're in traffic, the road rage comes out, right?
Yeah.
So the point isn't not to chastise somebody for that, but it's to look within and say,
Why is it coming up?
right, yeah. So doing the shadow work, I would say, is really important. So getting to know yourself and then choosing an ideal. So I'm actually in the process of finalizing my book about a technique for how to do the self-work, and it's called the Ideal Self Technique. And what you want to do is you want to visualize an ideal that incorporates all of your goals and values. And if you can do that, then you're going to carve like a very precise image of yourself. And the more conscious energy you focus on that, the more you meditate on it, you imagine it in various scenarios, like, well, what would I do? How would be the most ideal version of myself in this scenario? If somebody's arguing with me, if I'm in traffic, if somebody tries to steal from me, something like that. How could I be compassionate? How could I be loving? How would thinking about all those things, the more you invest yourself in that, the more you can actually embody that image.
Right.
So those are some really good things. And the last thing I would say is question your knowledge. Really ask yourself hard questions. If you have a belief, ask yourself, why is this true? What evidence do I have to support it? Can I understand what this evidence is? And if you don't have a solid answer, if you honestly tell yourself, well, I could study a little more, I could get a little bit more clear on this, do that work. Because what tends to happen is, as you could do that work, you're going to form connections to the deep core of your being. And then that information is really going to actually start to change who you are in a positive way.
A lot of people are waking up right now, and a lot of people are angry and pissed off about what's been happening. Many people don't have the perspective because they haven't found the spiritual component yet of everything literally happens for a reason, right? And the science behind that and the dimensions and infinite realities is all connected to that. What would you say to those people that are really in the darkness right now and experiencing oh my God, we've been lied to? And what is the bigger picture?
Well, I think you just said it perfectly, is everything happens for a reason. I mean, in my understanding in life, just looking at my own experience, I mean, I had this thought when I was like 6 or 7 years old where I kept noticing things that I would learn or experience seem to be represented later where I'm like, oh, I just learned how to, tie my shoelaces and now I can tie my shoes, or, something simple and mundane like that, but, if you think about all of life as having meaning, every possible experience you have is having some deep meaning, specifically a meaning to teach you about how you can be a better person and better live a more fulfilling life and evolve and grow, then it changes your perspective. So I would say that if you're having if you're in a dark place, and we've all been there, then allow yourself to process whatever's happening there, but also realize and start to take on this idea. I would call it a provisional belief. So I'm not telling you this is what you should believe. Yeah. I'm asking you to think about this as if it's true, act as if it is true, and see what happens. Yeah. That's a provisional belief. So act as if every experience you're having is meant to teach you something about how you can learn and grow. Yeah. And ask yourself, what can I learn from that? And the more you do that, no matter how dark situations get, and then you act in alignment with what you think you can learn, you very oftentimes transcend whatever horrible situation you're going through.
We all have belief systems, and a lot of us want to back them up, and even if something comes up that proves it might be a little bit wrong, we back it up again. So the first step really is to deconstruct our belief systems. How would we start that process?
Well, in philosophy, there's a branch of philosophy called epistemology, and there's an exercise that they do. It's called an epistemic regress exercise. I talked about it yesterday in the talk. And the benefit of this is that it helps you examine your beliefs to make sure you're believing the right things. So it basically starts off with, you ask yourself a question: why is this thing true? Why is the government corrupt? Well, we know the government's corrupt because we have evidence of blah, 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 blah. And you list it all out, and then you ask yourself, well, how do we know this evidence is actually telling us what it says it is? And then you keep going. You could go infinitely, conceivably. So the point is that what it does is it highlights what you think you know, and it starts to form what are called schemas or connections in the mind. And that makes your knowledge more accessible. It also makes it more abstract, so what in the sense that it goes from specific to more principled. Like, so if you're saying, well, we have these WikiLeaks documents that prove that John Podesta was sending emails to Hillary Clinton, insinuating pedophilia rings and things like that, that's specific. And the conclusion you draw from that is an abstraction. Oh, there's corruption in the government. Yes. Okay? And then because that abstraction relates to you because you're living in the country, Right. So how does that relate to you and your identity?
Yeah. You have to go the whole way with the thought, right? And a lot of people get stuck at that thought and then never circle back to. I always say, why don't people just sit and think of what does it really mean that this is the case? How come? That's what happened to me with religion, and realizing that the same words were in many different Bibles that completely compartmentalized and talk about it. In the beginning was Brahma, and the Brahma was the Word. That's the Bhagavad Gita, really? A pagan religion. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. A monotheistic religion. Makes sense. They don't want each other to know, right? Because they both say that, actually Christianity says that the other one's false, right? But why don't people just sit down and think about it? Do you have any insight? Why do you feel that we have this kind of conditioning that we just don't really go deeper than just what we're told?
Well, psychologically, your beliefs help you organize your reality. So the truth is actually, when you first hear about something, it's actually an agent of chaos because you don't know what it is. It's unknown. It's chaotic. By leaning into it, by researching it, by trying to understand it, you make it orderly. You take it from chaos to order. So, and in order to do that, you have to, like you said, you have to think about it, contemplate it, try to understand it. The truth isn't necessarily something easy. It takes work. I mean, if you want to understand the truth about something complicated, you probably have to study a whole bunch of stuff just before you even get to a maybe hazy understanding about what it is. Yeah. But more to the point is that people's beliefs help them organize their reality. They're part of their identity. That helps them navigate the world. Literally, this is exactly what happens. So if I tell you something that undergirds or undermines your belief structure, it's literally like I'm reaching into it's an attack, exactly. So one of the things that, you know, when I first started Waking Up Experience, I was the guy who was going to like convince you of cures of cancer in 5 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
And it didn't work, you know. I maybe convinced maybe a handful of people of the hundreds and thousands I tried to talk to, you know. So what I learned is that I actually have to build rapport. It's more about the relationship I'm developing with a person, because when you're sharing information with somebody, we're having a conversation right now, people are listening to this on a video, it's as if I'm reaching into a person's mind and like messing with their consciousness, you know. That's what the power of words are. So you should be careful and graceful and honorable with your words. Be compassionate with your words. If somebody's not interested in something, don't try to smack them upside the head like a sledgehammer with truth, you know. Be respectful. And if you cultivate that rapport, that relationship, that trust, then somebody will be much more willing to receive whatever you have to give them.
Yeah. We have to almost be careful with the way we communicate, because we all have so many triggers and reactions that you say one thing, people could do ad hominems with those too. They take that word and then they make it that you said that word was the whole thing you said, taking it out of context. So we really need to kind of be conscious of the way we communicate with each other in order for this to manifest, right? And even though there's a lot of chaos in the world right now, right, I feel it is a stillness in the storm. You know what I'm saying? I feel the people that awake and have the perspective of what's going on don't see chaos the way everybody else sees it, right? I jokingly used to say when people wake up, spontaneously wake up, a lot of people are gonna be walking around like chickens with their heads cut off, right? Yeah. And then there's Portal to Ascension, there's Stillness and Storm. We're the one-stop shops for this awakening process, right? So I want to thank you for putting that together, bro, and what you're doing. And I feel that we're going to be doing a lot of these events together, come together a lot, and we're really bringing the team together, dude. Like, it's seriously like, I feel like it's a 10,000-year-old band that we're bringing back together. You know what I mean? Like, and right, exactly, man. And we're all coming here now, and we need to join forces, right? There's been a lot of divide and conquer. So before we end this, I want you to talk about the division, the divide and conquer, and how we bring it back to unity.
Yeah, that's a great way to close this. I think, you know, my understanding of law is the recipe book for how we solve the divide and conquer problem. And just to kind of briefly lay that out, I mean, what the law is the expression of the Creator's will in the universe. So one of the things that we hear about in a lot of spiritual works is we have to align our will with the Creator's will, right? Let thy will be done, not my will, that kind of thing. But what does that even mean? Well, what it means is that as we manifest our desires, we do so with honor and trust. So if I want to do something with you, then I'm going to come talk to you and say, hey, this is my intention. Let's talk about this intention. What do you want to get out of this? Let's see if we can work together and negotiate and form a contract, an agreement that allows both of our free will agencies to express itself. So I would say that's a really big important thing. Start to study the law. Start to understand how free will works. Understand contracts in particular. The presentation I did for you in May of this year, Occult Nature of Law in the Legal System, I cover a lot of that, like really fine detail. As far as the Divide and Conquer program, I would say work on your ability to get triggered. I mean, our offenses, the things we get offended by, we got to realize that the thing that actually causes the offense is something that's inside of us. I mean, the trigger might come from outside, but they trigger something within us. So it's like we have our buttons out there, and they're being pushed, and then we got all upset, and then we get, and then we start to get pissed off at people. So work on making so that when people push your buttons, it doesn't cause anything. And then be compassionate. Try to see beyond and forgive when people commit, grievances against you, and those kind of things. So I think if we can do that, if we can really address the problems between us and work together for the big issues. Remember, we don't have to agree on everything, but we should at least agree that we all should have a right to life. We all should have the right to clean food, water, shelter, and things like that. And we all can make prosperity for ourselves if we want to.
Right. Beautiful. So what you're saying is we need to concentrate on what unites us than what divides us, what we have in common than what they're telling us we don't have in common, right? Or what those small differences are of just the drama in this reality. We really need to focus on unity, compassion, and even though everybody, I know a lot of people are looking at TVs politics and seeing what's going on, and you think that the world's gone to shit, right? And ultimately, this is just the chaos before something great. Have you heard of the rubber band effect? You pull back the rubber band, right, and into the darkness, into duality, and you let go of the rubber band, you spring into the light, right? The reason we're here is to experience duality at its finest. We're here. What is duality? Duality is not darkness, it's separation. Separation from source. So now we're moving up there. We're just pioneers at this new age. This is just the beginning right now. So even though it may be difficult to do these things, we're having challenges, personal stuff, I'm hopeful because I know it's just the beginning, man, right? And we're going to change. Everything's going to change very soon. It's picking up momentum. So, bro, I love you so much, man. Thank you for being here. And I want to have you at every event. I love you, bro. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. This is Neil with Portal to Ascension. We are at the Portal to Ascension conference with Justin Deschamps, Stillness in the Storm. Check.